Hello viewers, welcome to the Historic Show. Today we are discussing the rise and fall of a few corporate companies from history. All companies including startups fear that their competitors will take their market or customers. But history demonstrates that this is not the case of vast majority of companies. Most of the companies failed because of their own incompetence and inability to capture the changes in technology and customer preferences. For example, Nokia, Kodak, and Polaroid are few among them. Most of the giants were not taking cultural and behavior changes seriously and acting faster. Large companies are often slow to adapt to changes that are happening in society, which is the most frequent reason for their failure. For example, a bookstore has lost their business since they failed to capture the e-commerce trend pioneered by Amazon. Lack of innovation and lack of diversification are the other most frequent reasons why companies die. Companies that used to manufacture products as well as those in the service sector are particularly vulnerable. Weak management and leadership were also the core reasons for the failure of a few giant organizations. Leaders who are unwilling to take risks and management who are unconcerned about the needs can be identified as major culprits. Interestingly, most of the brands and companies that rose to the top exactly mitigated the reasons I mentioned, but after a couple of decades, most of them failed eventually. So in this video, we will take a closer look into the histories of 10 big companies that failed miserably for various reasons. So let's start our narration. First on our list, we have Nokia Corporation. If you are a 90s kid, I'm pretty sure that you can recollect the era of Nokia and have used Nokia phones at least once in your lifetime. How many of you know the fact that Nokia started out as a paper mill which was established in 1865 by mining engineer Frederick Edistam in southwestern Finland? However, the name Nokia wasn't yet born. It was the location of his second mill on the banks of Nokia River that inspired Edistam to name his company as Nokia, something that happened in 1871. This company was acquired by Finnish Rubber Works Limited and merged with the Finnish Cable Works Limited in the period of 1918 to 1922. The companies combined officially in 1967, creating the Nokia Corporation. Nokia entered the computer sector in the late 1950s and early 1960s, having long-standing expertise in electronic engineering and telecommunications. Nokia had acquired many companies in those days. By forming a joint venture with top Scandinavian makers of color TV Salora, Nokia rose to become the third largest television manufacturer between 1979 and 1985. Nokia also acquired Mobira, a mobile telephony company, and few years later, Nokia launched the world's first international cellular system, dubbed the Nordic Mobile Telephone Network, which linked Sweden, Denmark, Norway, and Finland. This was followed by launch of the companies as well as world's first car phone, which weighed in at around 10 kg. It's interesting to note that Nokia initially had no desire to manufacture mobile phones. However, Jorma Ollila became Nokia's CEO in 1990. Ollila made the decision to make Nokia a telecom-oriented business. That choice ended up being a game changer for Nokia. The Nokia 1011 was the first commercially available GSM mobile phone when it was introduced in November 1992. In fact, on June 1, 1991, Finnish Prime Minister Harry Holkeri became the first person on earth to make a GSM call, using Nokia equipment on the 900 MHz band network built by Nokia. In October 1998, Nokia overtook Motorola to become the most popular mobile phone brand worldwide. Nokia's revenue climbed fivefold from $6.5 billion to $31 billion between 1996 and 2001. Nearly 140 nations were served by Nokia, which employed over 55,000 people. It was the golden time of Nokia. But then, what happened to this giant company? What was the reason for the fall then? The answer is not straightforward. It wasn't an unusual occurrence. Of course, a business the size of Nokia cannot vanish overnight. The events and choices that caused Nokia's demise were many. If I have to say it in simple words, I would say that between 2007 and 2010, Nokia failed to understand the essential necessity. The whole landscape of the mobile phone was transformed in 2007 when Steve Jobs unveiled the first iPhone. People have developed an interest in utilizing various mobile applications and having a better user interface. Google recognized this and developed Android. Unfortunately, Nokia remained ignorant and overestimated the quality of its hardware. Nokia undoubtedly had the greatest hardware in the world, but hardware alone was insufficient. People anticipate more from their smartphones. Symbian, the operating system from Nokia, was not up to par with Apple's iOS and Google's Android. It was already too late when Nokia recognized what had happened. It was a mistake of Stephen Elop, the CEO of Nokia, appointed by Microsoft after the merging of Nokia and Microsoft in year 2013. Elop postponed the release of Nokia's brilliant N9 phone for 2 years. The N9 was expected to showcase Me Go, a cutting-edge and extremely user-friendly voice based solely on gestures that their engineers had been working on for years. Even Apple and Google have just started to catch up with the gesture-based operating system. The situation for Nokia may have been better if Nokia N9 had been introduced on the market at the appropriate time. The merger of Microsoft and Nokia didn't work out well for Nokia. Microsoft never seemed to want to work with Nokia on an equal basis. They only wanted to market their own Windows Phone by utilizing Nokia as a golden goose. Some people believe that Nokia was simply an inferior company with less talent and innovation than Apple. However, this is untrue. The engineers at Nokia were among the greatest in the world, and they were fully aware of the dangers that lay ahead. One of the biggest challenges for Nokia was to improve its operating system Symbian, which was inferior to Apple's iOS or Google's Android at that time. However, replacing the current program would require years of work. However, the management decided a speedy launch of their new items, which required more planning. Unfortunately, employees were not allowed to voice any concerns about the direction the company was taking. The senior managers in Nokia just wanted puppets, not intelligent employees who could consider the positives and negatives of the company. Consequently, employees didn't give a damn about how the company was doing. In a nutshell, Nokia lost the trust and loyalty of its staff. As a result, the company frequently failed to upgrade its operating system to meet minimum requirements. Finally, the corporation went out of business. Number 2 on our list is Polaroid. Polaroid had been an industry leader for decades, but a time came when it wasn't a trendsetter anymore. A lack of innovation led to its demise, and this was due to a misunderstanding of how to handle failure in business. Polaroid and instant photography were interchangeable terms back then, but the formerly successful company failed miserably when it faced the most formidable for digital photography. Polaroid was founded by Edwin H. Land. The company's initial product was polarized sunglasses. After a few years, Land received funds for additional expansion from a number of Wall Street investors. Although the Polaroid company was established in 1937, the famous camera wasn't created until a decade later. In 1943, Edwin Land was on a family vacation when his daughter asked him the simple question, "Why can't I see the picture now?" Yes, that question gave rise to the concept of Polaroid camera. The Optical Society of America received an official demonstration of the Polaroid instant camera prototype in 1947. It was entirely novel and exciting to everyone since the camera could accommodate the whole darkroom operation. The first camera to be sold was the Polaroid Model 95 in 1948. The initial Polaroid cameras were large and heavy, but over the following few decades they were changed to better and smaller, and they maintained an affordable price. Kodak was a customer of some of Land's polarizing products. In 1976, when Kodak introduced instant film cameras, Polaroid declared they were suing them, claiming Kodak had violated their patent on instant photography technique. Total camera sales increased from 7.4 million in 1976 to 10.3 million in 1977 and 14.3 million in 1978 in the 2 years that followed the lawsuit. 10 years were spent on the fatal court case. In response to Kodak's patent infringements, Polaroid filed a $12 billion lawsuit. The court ruled in favor of Polaroid and ordered Kodak to cease the instant picture production as well as pay Polaroid $909.5 million of the $12 billion it had requested. However, a number of factors made the demise of Polaroid inevitable. Polaroid introduced the PolaVision 8mm movie technology for making instant moving photos in 1977. The long-awaited color home video system known as PolaVision is one of the Polaroid's most exciting innovations. Unfortunately, by the time it hit the market in 1978, it wasn't that innovative anymore. A loss of around $15 million was caused by PolaVision. The Polaroid management began to worry about introducing creative items and experiencing other setbacks. In the US, Polaroid had 15% of the market for cameras, and the business only expanded from there. Polaroid failed to capitalize its own research. It developed and submitted dozens of patent applications for instant imaging solutions. In late 1990s, Polaroid was the leading manufacturer of digital cameras. Unexpectedly, the corporation failed to profit from its own research. They were hoping the customer would always prefer hard copy printouts. At one point, Polaroid was making a massive instant film profit margin of 65%. It defined the company's economics, and as a result, Polaroid's leadership chose against diversifying and placing too much attention on one area of the company. Instant film meant everything to them. This resulted in major financial mismanagement, including substantial investment in digital photography R&D. This marked a turning point and the start of the company's downhill trajectory. Instead of competing to be fast, they tried to be perfect. According to reports, Polaroid began working on fully functional digital cameras as early as 1996, but these devices were never released. Back then, digital photo resolution wasn't all that great, and the corporation didn't want to be linked with such substandard photography. This was another turning moment that ultimately led to the company's demise. The decision makers were keen on only producing flawless products. As you know, Polaroid's competitors capitalized on growing demand for digital photography. Polaroid got left in the dust because it didn't get there ahead of the competition. Next on the list we have Blackberry. Though Blackberry has less than 1% of the smartphone market share today, it once had more than 50% of the smartphone market in the US and 20% globally. Blackberry formerly ruled the smartphone market, selling more than 50 million units annually, earning the nickname Crackberry for its product and enjoying stock price about $230. How such a business could fall so much is the question. Even though it was one of the first smartphones, it lacked innovation and grew complacent as the smartphone industry evolved. There was an updated iPhone every year and other smartphones like the Motorola Droid began to hit the market. Blackberry struggled to introduce new features that users would find useful. Blackberry initially started with a different name and purpose, that is Research in Motion, RIM, or we can call it as RIM. Founded in March 1984, the company first evolved itself with developing data technology and connectivity products. An LED system for GM, a local network for IBM, and even a film editing system that won an Oscar in 1998 were among the company's early side projects. RIM gained an advantage as pioneer in mobile messaging in 1989. When Rogers, a Canadian phone provider, hired RIM to develop on the Mobitex network, a system created especially for messaging. The company felt an increasing inclination towards creating equipment to facilitate wireless connectivity. Hence, in 1993, it embarked upon creating an Intel wireless modem containing RIM modem firmware. In 1996, RIM introduced its first two-way pager. And for the next few years, the company iterated on that design, gradually adding features like color display, Wi-Fi, instant messaging, and web browsing. The company introduced its first product that could be referred to as phone in 2002, equipped with push email and internet capabilities. At that time, some services like email, internet faxing, etc. could only be used if you want a desktop. However, the launch of these devices made it possible for users to use them on mobile phones. Due to its business-oriented functionality and enterprise-level security, during the following 10 years, BlackBerry rose to prominence among corporate America's favorite device. RIM implemented the trackball in 2006 so that users could scroll the screen. This accessibility and inclusion had positive results. In 2007, the business generated more than $3 billion in revenue and $631 million in net profits. The BlackBerry was certainly not destined for failure. Even when the iPhone and Google's Android OS entered the market in 2007 and 2008 respectively. In the beginning, BlackBerry's management scoffed at Apple's touchscreen iPhone, claiming that consumers would prefer their physical keyboard. Therefore, BlackBerry was alright for a time. RIM, however, miscalculated the pace of change in the smartphone industry. BlackBerry consistently remained focused on its corporate customers and their connection and security needs, as Apple and Google commercialized smartphones by developing sleek user interface and appealing apps. This was an example of the classic innovator's dilemma at work. BlackBerry focused on serving its most valuable clients who were responsible for the majority of its income and profits, and disregarded the end market that would ultimately grow to be the most significant. As I mentioned earlier, there is a new updated iPhone every year and the other smartphones like Motorola Droid have begun to hit the shelves. Then RIM attempted to follow. It released cutting-edge new gadgets like Playbook, tablet and torch, but the products garnered poor reviews. For BlackBerry's business-oriented customer base, the Playbook was even sent without an emailing app, rendering it worthless. When the iPhone started to gain popularity, BlackBerry hurriedly launched the BlackBerry Storm, a touchscreen handset that received poor reviews and frequent malfunctions. Following products brought back the keyboard in a touchscreen keyboard combination design, which temporarily slowed the trend but ultimately proved erroneous as the market continued to move toward greater screen real estate. In June 2010 came BlackBerry's death rattle with the release of iPhone 4. Apple's phone sales quickly overtook BlackBerry for the second time following its debut. However, they remained there this time. Even when it tried, BlackBerry was unable to carry out its adaptations effectively. The Playbook tablet's 2010 launch received harsh criticism for lack of native email, calendar, and contact apps. Even its most recent iteration like the BlackBerry Sprint in 2015 experienced unsuccessful product launches, subpar usability, and illogical value proportions. BlackBerry today has completely shunned its mobile phone production and has resorted to mobile security and software solutions. Initially, it was able to thrive in the market, disrupting the technological world, but was later disrupted by its own inability to judge the level of competition in the market. BlackBerry's story of never-before-seen success and ultimate failure is a lesson for tech companies that resort to stagnancy after attaining success. Next on our list, we have Compaq. When you think about personal computers, the first names that came to mind may be Lenovo, HP, and Dell. But have you ever heard of Compaq? Well, if you were born after the year 2000, maybe not. In 1980s and 1990s, Compaq was a high-flying PC brand and created the first successful and fully legal IBM PC clone. Compaq also set records as a startup, replaced IBM as a standard bearer in the PC market, and was known for making sturdy, highly reliable PCs and servers. When Rod Canyon, Jim Harris, and Bill Murtaugh founded Compaq in 1982 with just $3,000, they set out with a clear vision of providing personal computers that were not only portable but had the power to compete with IBM's machines. The Compaq portable they created was revolutionary and very affordable, beating out their rivals in terms of sales and overall growth. Because it was 100% compatible with IBM systems, portable, and just as powerful as the most advanced IBM computer available, the Compaq portable was really groundbreaking. It came with 1 to 2 double-sided double-density 360 KB disk drives, 128K of RAM, and an exclusive Compaq BIOS. Other rivals opted to concentrate on pricing to increase sales, missing the mark on hardware side, allowing Compaq to capture a sizable market share with their reliable systems and compatibility. Compaq made history along the way as it quickly rose to industrial acclaim as a leader in the PC industry. They crossed the $1 billion revenue threshold in 1987, and by 1991, when their sales had topped $3 billion, they held the 5th largest market share. It was through Rod Canyon and his leadership that made this happen. A fairly flat hierarchical structure introduced by him in the company was a powerful motivator and drew in the best talent in the sector. However, the early 1990s saw Canyon ousted from the company. He fought so hard to grow due to stark differences in business thinking with the other senior leadership. This dismissal moved Compaq to change directions, considering several acquisition targets in order to explore possible new markets and income sources. The company's new CEO, Eckhard Pfeiffer, adopted a strategy of concentrating on retail market with products like Compaq Presario, one of the most economical PC at that time and a PC costing less than $1,000. Compaq reached unprecedented heights as a result of these and other obvious choices made by Pfeiffer. At that moment, Compaq, a once smaller maker of personal computers, surpassed both Apple and IBM to become leading PC manufacturer. All good things eventually came to an end despite Pfeiffer's change in direction and early achievements. Fast forward to today, and Compaq is just a trademark that HP wants but never uses. So why did Compaq fail? The beginning of the end came for Compaq when it merged with Digital Equipment Corporation, DEC. DEC was a legendary company with a thriving services business. The problem was DEC had a whole bunch of stuff Compaq didn't want. The two companies were not a good match. While DEC was in the business of manufacturing computer chips, Compaq did not have plans to continue in that line of businesses. Also, DEC's chips were incompatible with Compaq computers, and DEC made microcomputers, a type of smaller computer with less power than Compaq's products. DEC also made Unix systems while Compaq focused on Intel-based systems that run on Windows. A series of scandals forced various executives out in 1999. CFO Earl Merson disclosed financial results to some analysts but not others, and he resigned under fire. Soon CEO Eckhard Pfeiffer followed. Compaq's computer sales dropped in 1999 while sales at Dell, Gateway, HP, and even fading IBM increased. The rapid demise of a large number of internet startups, often known as the dot-com bubble and bust, hurt Compaq. With their venture financing and proceeds from their first public offerings, the dot-coms were investing heavily in equipment. Their downfall resulted in Compaq losing several important clients. Another factor in Compaq's failure was Intel. Although less costly than IBM's, Compaq's PCs weren't inexpensive. When Intel started making motherboards and chipsets, the PC market became more stable. Following this, other companies could simply purchase motherboards and CPUs from Intel and install them in their own cases. The resulting computer was less expensive than Compaq. Finally, HP had overtaken Compaq as a market leader. The financial reserves were rapidly depleting. A swap stock merger was proposed and accepted by HP, with HP being the dominant control party. However, the executives on both sides didn't get along, which resulted in several high-profile resignations and layoffs on Compaq's side, leaving it vulnerable to HP's whims. This merger also led to the folding of the previous acquisitions by Compaq. Number 5 on the list, we have TiVo. When you think of DVRs, what's the first name that comes to mind? TiVo probably. TiVo, the granddaddy of digital video recorders. Around the turn of the century, TiVo defined the DVR category, and today the product name has been turned into a verb. If you are going to record a TV show on your cable company's DVR, you will probably just say you will TiVo it. In 1997, two former employees of HP and SDI, Jim Barton and Mike Ramsey, recognized an opportunity letting users easily record and watch their favorite shows on their own time. They didn't just want to build something good, they wanted to be legendary. Their hubris paid off. At the dawn of the millennium, TiVo represented the future of television. It was on the tip of everyone's tongue from Howard Stern to Oprah. It was so successful brand that TiVo became a verb like zero, and deservedly so. It revolutionized how we watch TV and paved the way for the streaming era. Mike Ramsey dared to announce that the TiVo company would release the DVR by April 1999 following the introduction of the first functional TV prototype at the 1999 show, and there was only a short amount of time left for the production of an actual functional product. Jim Ramsey and Mike Barton swiftly put together a top-notch team to release the TiVo on time. The proposal required a lot of the team's time and effort, with the majority of the members spending the whole month of March at the company's premises. In March, TiVo rolled out the first box from the assembly point. Following the launch of TiVo, the company has made the service available in Mexico, Taiwan, the United Kingdom, Australia, Canada, etc. The cable card standard is incorporated in the new models of the company, albeit limited to United States. In late 2000, Philips Electronics introduced the DSR 6000, the first direct TV receiver with an integrated TiVo DVR. This new device, nicknamed the Direct TiVo, stores digital signals sent from Direct TV directly onto a hard disk. In early 2000s, TiVo also partnered with electronics manufacturer Thomson and broadcaster British Sky Broadcasting to deliver the TiVo service in UK market. This partnership resulted in the release of Thomson PVR 10 UK, a standalone receiver, in October 2000. But in January 2003, after poor sales, TiVo pulled out of the UK market. Furthermore, there were numerous reasons that led to TiVo's fall. TiVo failed to innovate. The product as it is now is basically the same as what was introduced in 1999 with some minor streaming functionality upgrades. TiVo struggled to promote itself. Literally years after the product's introduction, consumers still had no idea what it was or why they would want one. TiVo was unable to license their technology and user interface for widespread use. TiVo was unable to challenge the cable set-top box market. Scientific Atlanta and General Instruments still dominate the space. However, TiVo was unable to gain any ground. TiVo fell short of being a complete home media center. TiVo makes good marketing brands, but they don't understand the customers or the industry they are in. Instead of working with the cable companies, TiVo opposed them. People also prefer DVRs sold by cable companies to TiVo. TiVo failed to impact the cable card specification to be more third-party friendly. TiVo failed to get exclusive content distribution deals for their hardware. Most of their intellectual properties revolve around DVR-based technology, which implies some form of live broadcast. TiVo was a stopgap solution that was replaced by better technology. Putting hard drives in home was great at the moment of disruption, but streaming television is far more efficient in the long run. TiVo puts the responsibility on consumers to remember to record a program beforehand and manage their storage space. Streaming solutions allow the user to pick what to watch at any time after it has aired and not worry about the storage at all. The retail component of the company is the main reason for the failure. When you include the service cost, the most recent model is incredibly pricey but not all that superior to a standard cable box. At TiVo, innovation has been seriously lacking for many years. They have a limited number of streaming apps and the UI is awful. The product is not a straightforward plug-and-play item, rather it is a specialty item. For most people, this poses a high barrier to admission. TiVo continues to produce cable boxes despite all the achievements in streaming technologies while everyone else is building the future, and that marks the failure of TiVo. Up next, we have Abercrombie and Fitch store on the list. Imagine you are back in 2004, drinking your Starbucks, listening to music on your iPod Classic, holding bags from Victoria's Secret, and ready to walk into an Abercrombie and Fitch store to buy their newest jeans and t-shirts. Ah, good times. While brands like Starbucks, Apple, and Ralph Lauren continue to dominate pop culture, Abercrombie and Fitch has long been forgotten. Abercrombie & Fitch was a darling American brand that dominated the closets of teens and young adults in late 90s and early 2000s. Its stores are dimly lit and heavily scented. If you were a teen in the 2000s, chances are you either shopped at Abercrombie & Fitch or felt too excluded to set foot in the store. The 130-year-old retailer may have gotten its start catering to fishing and hunting enthusiasts, but by the late 90s, the brand bore little resemblance to its outdoorsy origins. The brand delighted in its waspiness. It hired individuals with the same appearance while marketing the all-American style through exclusivity and putting pictures of the shredded physique on storefronts and shopping bags. At one point, shirtless men were positioned at storefronts to greet customers. Wearing Abercrombie was a status symbol, which made it acceptable for the brand to dominate high school hallways. Abercrombie & Fitch's history dates back to 1892, when it sold hunting and sporting wear, and it filed for bankruptcy in 1976 and soon closed its flagship store in Manhattan, making the first major identity crisis for the company. 2 years later, Oshman Sporting Goods paid $1.5 million to buy A&F, but the company's main line of business remained hunting apparel. Oshman transformed A&F into a small mail-order business with a few physical locations, using its former mailing list as a leverage. A&F suffered once more as it failed to locate a stable market, continuing to sell the same goods as before with a few novelty items thrown in. Leslie Wexner, founder of The Limited, paid $47 million for the brand in 1988 after Oshman's gave up and put it up for sale. After that, he began to do what he had done with Victoria's Secret, determine what the store had been doing wrong and how he might fix it. To do this, he brought in CEO Michael Jeffries, who transformed Abercrombie & Fitch into a clothing store aimed at teens and made the brands known for today's most recognizable products. Abercrombie & Fitch started selling casual, preppy clothes with some sex appeal while also debuting catalogs and marketing featuring half-naked models. In 1999, 7 years after Jeffries took the reins, A&F became a part of the cultural zeitgeist when the pop rap group LFO released the song Summer Girls with the lyrics, "I like girls who wear Abercrombie & Fitch. I would take her if I had one wish." This was the pinnacle of Abercrombie & Fitch pre-2000 success, and it would grow even further as Wexner had an idea to specifically target the 14 to 18 cool kids of high school across America. The first Abercrombie & Fitch store outside of USA was opened in the Toronto suburb, Canada on January 20, 2006. A year later, on March 22, it had a store across the pond in London, England. By the early 2010s, A&F had nearly 1,000 stores in total, spanning the globe from Japan to England to its first ever home in Manhattan. But the momentum behind Abercrombie was overcome by other cultural forces as consumer preferences shifted and critics stood up to what appeared to be a blandly racist and discriminatory ideology that popped up the brand. Amid growing criticism, Abercrombie flamed out as recently portrayed in new Netflix documentary White Hot: The Rise and Fall of Abercrombie & Fitch. According to the documentary, Abercrombie's hiring practices were rooted in racism, elitism, and discrimination. Recruiters operated under instructions to hire only good-looking people, which Abercrombie defined in a booklet that spelled out what was acceptable. While classic hairstyles presented on a white model were in the acceptable category, dreadlocks on a black model fell into the unacceptable category. Although A&F would continue to enjoy success through the early 2010s, this attitude would soon catch up with the brand. Jeffries retired in 2014 after 11 straight quarters of same-store sales declines, and even after his exit, sales were still plunging. On February 15, 2012, A&F announced plans to close 180 more underperforming US stores. In 2015, A&F reported a net loss of $63 million for its first quarter and made $72.8 million in operating income. Then it soon started fielding takeover offers while closing 54 stores. It closed another 39 stores and downsized 16 in 2017. Since 2010, the company has closed more than 400 stores. The Hollister flagship store in New York City was closed in 2019. In 2021, Abercrombie & Fitch flagship locations in Europe and Asia were all closed. The original flagship location in New York City was also slated to close but was remained open. Time will tell if the brand will find new life, and A&F hopes that its rich history repeats itself with its new direction. The next company we have is Hummer. The Hummer brand has a relatively short history. but its trucks are some of America's biggest automotive icons. Originally designed for the military, Hummers are famous for their size, off-road capability, and of course fuel consumption. The Hummer traces its roots to 1983 when AM General, a heavy vehicle manufacturer, received $1 billion from Pentagon to build the high-mobility multi-purpose wheeled vehicle Humvee. The Humvee became a staple of the US military, and by 1991, 72,000 had been produced. The truck was especially useful in Middle Eastern conflict zones due to its ability to transport troops and cargo over rough terrain. If you are wondering how this military vehicle ended up on public roads, you can thank none other than Arnold Schwarzenegger. The story goes that Arnold Schwarzenegger first laid eyes on a convoy of military Humvees when he was on a movie set in Oregon. Set on owning one, he personally lobbied AM General to produce a civilian version. Not a company to pass up the prospect of a free celebrity endorsement by the biggest action hero of the day, AM General set about producing a commercial for Hummer. In 1992, the first Hummer rolled off the production line and straight into Arnold Schwarzenegger's garage. He drove it everywhere, including movie premieres, and sales of Hummer soared. It was perhaps the most impractical vehicle of its time, big, bulky, and hard to park. But it looked tough and it turned heads. It was immediately popular, especially in Hollywood. Stretch Hummers soon became a novelty. Even today, few people can point out a Toyota Camry at a distance, but everyone knows a Hummer. In its glory days, the Hummer was seen as a symbol of militarist aesthetic. Sometime later, General Motors released the Hummer H2. Unlike its predecessor, the H1, the new Hummer came with rounder and shinier shapes and an overall hospitable look, both in terms of aesthetics and comfort. After the release of H2, 80,000 vehicles were sold in 1 year only. In comparison, the H1 model managed to sell roughly 12,000 vehicles between 1992 and 2006. So, what was the real reason behind the fall? The real issue was the fact that the Hummer was actively hurting the environment because it was bad on gas. Reportedly, many owners of the Hummers cared about the environment but lacked the knowledge to realize that. Both the H1 and H2 models were not affected by the Environmental Protection Agency's testing, mainly due to their weight. Many people claim that the two models are too big and too heavy, not to mention the way they eat gas. As such, an anti-Hummer sentiment grew. Body panels were keyed, tires slashed, windows were broken, and the car was also used as a canvas for pro-green messages. Following the backlash and the rage of anti-Hummer league, General Motors tried to reclaim itself. The H2H model arrived on the market in 2004 and featured a hydrogen-powered variant of the classic 6-liter V8 engine. However, the carmaker knew that they needed a much smaller model so that Hummer would become accessible to large audience. The H3 was made in 2005, used a modified GMT 355 body and featured a 3.5-liter engine. The later model helped the Hummer become the fastest growing brand in the US, and on top of that, the vehicle also entered a couple of new markets in Europe. From 2005 to 2009, General Motors tried to revive the Hummer with a couple of rather successful models. However, the sales would drop again in 2009 as the other suppliers, most notably Racer and FPV, developed friendlier and better cars based on the Hummer. In fact, Racer, the one to prove that making an eco-friendly SUV was possible, offered to buy the Hummer brand from GM. Naturally, General Motors didn't want to sell despite the fact that they were on the brink of bankruptcy, as they managed to sell only 9,000 units in 2009, shortly after General Motors failed for bankruptcy. Next on the list we have Yahoo. Yahoo was founded in 1994 by David Filo and Jerry Yang. They were electrical engineering students at Stanford University, and they created a website called David and Jerry's Guide to World Wide Web. It was originally formed with the intention of being a directory for the internet. Funny, isn't it? Just a couple of graduate students having fun. Well, David and Jerry's Guide to World Wide Web was renamed Yahoo in March 1994. With that, these two youngsters launched one of the biggest tech startups the world has ever seen. Yahoo was one of the first major tech companies that was a millennial product. Most of our first email addresses were with Yahoo. However, somehow Yahoo faded away into the distance and from all our memories. When Jerry Yang and David Filo created the prototype Yahoo in 1994, it had no real competition. Yahoo rapidly became search gate to the still new web. How did Yahoo did it? By investing in its web portal and later its search engine technology. If you invested in Yahoo on day one, you would have seen your stock rise by 1,339.4% at its January 3, 2000 high. As the bubble grew ever bigger, Yahoo started what would prove a long history of bad acquisitions such as Broadcast.com and GeoCities. Then came the dot-com crash. Like so many other high-flying companies, Yahoo fell like a rock. Unlike many others such as Pets.com, Crowcat and eToys, Yahoo survived. Unfortunately for Yahoo, its nemesis Google had already been born, and Yahoo would continue to buy bad companies instead of investing in search engine engineering. In the years after this, Yahoo steadied itself, but it was no longer a growth company. It was as if Yahoo went from being an up-and-coming young adult to retirement age in a blink of an eye. Good timing was not enough to overcome poor decisions. Yahoo was essentially launched at just the right time to provide a more than 20-year span of impressive growth. Yet good fortune was not enough to overcome the poor business decisions. Let's now look into the 5 core reasons that led to Yahoo's demise. Number 1. A missed opportunity with Google and search. In 2002, Yahoo had the chance to buy Google for $1 billion, but executives dragged their feet. By the time they decided to pursue the offer, Google's space had soared to $3 billion. In the late 90s, search was only generating 6% of Yahoo's income stream, and the company believed it was not worth improving. Number 2. Mismanagement of Flickr. Before Yahoo purchased Flickr in 2005, its founders had planned to turn the photo sharing site into a social network. Yahoo mismanaged its acquisition of Flickr, however, and missed the social media boat. Number 3 was avoiding Facebook. Yahoo attempted to purchase Facebook back in 2006 for $1 billion, but the initial offer was refused by CEO Mark Zuckerberg. Reports indicate that the board of directors would have forced Zuckerberg to accept an offer of $1.1 billion, but Yahoo executives would not agree to the increased bid. Number 4 was failure to merge gracefully with Microsoft. Although Microsoft's $4.6 billion takeover bid was rejected in 2008, Yahoo ended up signing a deal with Microsoft the very next year to use the Bing search engine after failing to develop an effective search engine of their own. This was likely the result of a team of lower quality programmers, as Yahoo was not known to place emphasis on the quality of its programming staff in the way Microsoft, Facebook, and others have. Number 5 was failure with Tumblr. Yahoo purchased the young Tumblr microblogging organization in 2013 for $1.1 billion, but failed to turn their acquisition into a profitable component of the company. After investing hundreds of millions of dollars into the project, Tumblr essentially disappeared into obscurity and proved to be one of the last opportunities for Yahoo to redeem itself in the business world. Another terrible mistake Yahoo made was killing their golden goose while it was still laying eggs. In 2005, Yahoo's co-founder Jerry Yang made one of the smartest investments in history. He purchased 40% of Chinese e-commerce site Alibaba for $1 billion. Alibaba is today worth more than $200 billion, and it's still growing. That means that Yahoo's stake in Alibaba must be worth $80 billion. But unfortunately, in 2012, Yahoo decided to sell off significant portion of its Alibaba stock. They sold even more in 2014. Yahoo thought they were pretty clever at the time because they profited a few $billion of these sales. After that, Yahoo only owns 15% of Alibaba, but that assets alone is worth $30 billion, 6 times as much as all of Yahoo's core businesses. Lack of clear vision and a string of poor leaders were a curse for Yahoo. From the beginning, Yahoo as a whole lacked a clear vision regarding the overall purpose of the company. They were not a search company nor a tech company, but functioned primarily as a media company that considered programming to be a necessary commodity to translate production work into code. Coupled with a string of poor leaders lacking vision for the future, Yahoo's ultimate demise was foreseen years beforehand by some former employees. If Yahoo's ultimate fate teaches future business leader anything, it is the importance of great leaders with a clear vision for where the company as a whole is headed. Organizations lacking such leaders are bound to fail time and again. Next on the list we have America Online, the internet service provider. When the internet became more available to the non-technically savvy average household, America Online was the leader in dial-up service. America Online was best known as an internet service provider for those who knew little or nothing about the internet. Many of its users were attracted to it because of its reputation as a family-friendly starting ground. On the other side of the tracks, more experienced users were often critical of the service, pointing to its walled garden approach. The software's tendency to override other applications and the way American Online made it difficult for its users to quit the service. In addition to the internet access, Yahoo provided its own dedicated browser and email provider, thus nearly monopolizing the market at the time. In 1998, American Online acquired its competitors CompuServe and ICQ, thus stamping out nearly all additional competition in the market. By 1999, American Online's revenue matched NBC's, and with a market value of $125 billion, it was bigger than any other media concern in the world. Basically, American Online's goal at the time was to be the equivalent of Microsoft to PCs and position internet service to be just as valuable to the average American family as phone and television. With customer retention incredibly high and direct mailer marketing tactics, American Online succeeds in making the internet necessary for more and more people every year, permanently, and making themselves a world leader in the internet temporarily. To understand American Online's fall, it's important to understand how it rose to such tremendous heights. AOL would not have succeeded without the Commodore 64 or the Apple II. American Online started in 1983 as an online gaming company called Control Video Corp (CVC), which was founded by William von Meister. 1 year later, the company was in dire financial straits. An investor in CVC, Frank Caulfield, brought in Jim Casey as a manufacturing consultant, and Steve Case came on also initially as a part-time consultant. Case, Kimsey, and engineer Mark Cherif convinced Commodore Business Machines, maker of popular Commodore 64, to research the viability of providing an online communication service for its customers in 1984. Until that point, CVC was only providing one online service, Game Lane, developed by Atari. When Commodore accepted the deal, CVC licensed software from another online service called PlayNet, and their online service, dubbed Q-Link, was off and running with email, chat, file sharing, games, and other features. Fast forward to 2000, approaching the height of the dot-com bubble, American Online bought Time Warner for $165 billion. Unfortunately, less than 3 years later, American Online experienced its first decline in quarterly sales in its history. The decline coincides with the switch from dial-up services to much faster DSL and cable internet services. Though American Online and its competitors offered dial-up services, many customers looked to their cable and phone providers because of bundle deals with the phone and television services. In addition to its competitions, American Online was positioned as internet for beginners, but by 2004 there were fewer and fewer beginners. American Online built a huge and profitable business as safe and easy place for people to get their first experience on the internet. They recruited celebrities for their advertising campaigns in an effort to look relevant, which to many appeared desperate. They began shifting towards content as its unique value service. The American Online brand is associated with internet novices, protective parents, and chatting teens. American Online's chat room services were a key feature in the early years of the internet to be replaced by social networking sites such as Friendster, MySpace, and Facebook. It was announced in 2007 that AOL would be moving its headquarters to New York, resulting in a layoff of 20% of its staff known as Bloody Tuesday, which caused an internet backlash and a plummet of the company's stock. While American Online did not have to reach the number of visitors that Yahoo have, they did have to work to get their readership high enough to acquire advertising revenue. Unfortunately, with the chief executives being changed and altered every few years, the company lost credibility amongst its investors, and when companies such as Google retracted their investment in the company's outlook for prosperity appeared uncertain at best. In mid-2009, American Online parted ways with Time Warner. The biggest problem for American Online is that they were too slow to embrace change. By the time they were ready to shift their focus, others were around doing it faster, better, and with better marketing tactics. American Online has consistently appeared as an old company attempting to appeal to a younger crowd while still maintaining their spokespeople as 40-plus white males. Social networking sites took the place of chat rooms and instant messages. Yahoo cornered the content market, and with the blogging being an integral part of the internet in the later years, paid content made less sense as newspapers and magazines discovered as well. The best option for America Online now is to serve as a parent company to its more successful products such as MapQuest and TMC and focus on marketing those sites to the top of their respective industries, thus making America Online a content provider and filling a void instead of trying to take on a portion of the internet that has already been conquered. The last company in our list is Borders bookstore chain. The collapse of Borders is more than the failure of just another retail operation. It's also a wake-up call to any publisher who takes its business ecosystem for granted, whether that publisher is in books, journals, or anything else. But first, let's take a moment to discuss Borders' life and times, which is a remarkable story. Borders Group came into existence following the spin-off from its parent Kmart Corporation in May 1995. However, the Borders name dates back over 2 decades. Borders began as an independent used bookstore in Ann Arbor, Michigan. The shop was founded in 1971 by Louis and Tom Borders, serving the bustling academic community of the University of Michigan and Ann Arbor's smaller colleges. The store held its own and became a popular neighborhood hangout. Within the next several years, the Border brothers opened 2 more bookstores in Michigan, one in Atlanta and other in Indianapolis. In addition, Louis and Tom started a wholesaling business they called BIS, Book Inventory Systems, which experienced healthy growth. Toying with the idea of a superstore, the brothers opened their first prototype large-scale retail store in 1985. Its success and rise of similar competing stores set the retail book industry on its ear. The superstore model shifted sales from small indoor mall-based chain stores and independent booksellers to the new chain superstores. By 1998, with their 5 Midwest bookstores and BAS bustling service numbering 14 bookstore clients, the brothers' enterprise was bringing in a net income of $1.9 million from a sales of $32.3 million. But the brothers wanted to expand in a big way. Borders Group was the second of the 3 largest bookstore chain in the United States based on sales and number of stores. It was the fastest growing bookstore chain. It operates 354 superstores under the name of Borders Books and Music. Furthermore, Borders Group's efforts at international expansion have led to establishment of Borders Bookstore in the United Kingdom, Australia, Singapore, New Zealand, and Puerto Rico. So what could possibly go wrong? How did this giant bookstore chain fall? One way to look at the demise of Borders is as perhaps the loudest signal to date that the disruptive forces now penetrating every corner of the publishing industry are not waiting for some far off time before they take their place at center stage. Disruptive technology has been greatly domesticated up until this point. This is the case with research journals, for example, which are largely dominated in electronic form by various same publishers that dominated the game when it was all print. We have all, of course, been witnesses to interviews with famous people who have stated that there will always be print. Whether they are leaders in their fields, authors, or even rare celebrities who feels compelled to weigh in on everything. Right, I see. The digital demon will emerge, heralding the new period and urging us all to download a copy of Ray Kurzweil's Singularity, since we have long known that the hero of print will eventually fall on his sword. But in the mid-1990s, Borders lost its edge. It was a pretty big bet on merchandise. Just as the market was transitioning to digital, Borders heavily invested in CD music and DVD sales. Additionally, Barnes & Noble was withdrawing at the same time. Moreover, Barnes & Noble made investments to boost its online sales. Later, it created the Nook, a standalone e-reader. But unlike Barnes & Noble, Borders failed to foresee the development of e-books. For years, Borders outsourced its online book selling to Amazon.com. As a result, whenever you visited Borders.com, you were redirected. Relinquishing control to other company hurt Borders' branding strategies and cut into its customer base. As Borders made significant CD sales investment in the 90s, people started purchasing iPods rather than CDs. Additionally, when Borders did ultimately decrease its music inventory, it found that it had more expensive store space than it required, which put an extra strain on its economic model. Furthermore, Borders was already drowning in debt when the recession struck in 2008-2009. It has restructured twice since 2008 in an attempt to pay down some $350 million in debt. But Borders was unable to escape the situation its ineffective commercial tactics had placed it in. Borders mishandled its big box strategy. It opened far too many stores, including several overseas despite lackluster sales. The stores tended to be too big and expensive in terms of overhead. The company cited its expansion strategy as problematic in its February 2011 bankruptcy filing. It noted that it had signed too many 15 to 20-year leases, making it harder to shed unprofitable locations, and there were many. The company still has a sizable core of profitable stores, it said. However, in analyzing their cost structure, the debtors have also found that they have a number of stores that are simply unprofitable and are substantially impacting the debtors' overall performance and ability to pay their debits. The justification for all those big stores proved faulty too. The internet is far more adept at offering a huge selection of books. The reality is that people are increasingly turning to digital books, and one reason B&N has avoided Borders' fate is thanks to the Nook, which has successfully grabbed a quarter of the ebook market away from Amazon. The death of Borders doesn't necessarily mean the beginning of the end for books, but the days of the massive shopping mall-like stores appear to be numbered.